when you have invested in a course, it has to be a habit. So that is something is helpful because it also can create context. Context of social affiliation, social connection. Something we've not talked about here is that we are being offered a different kind of leadership. Leadership that is outward looking rather than inward looking, that the generation with the nation, rather than with the other categories we tend to front to identify us. So we are being offered a different kind of leadership.
Maybe before I go to Jacob, there's one specific question I want Jacob to address, but before that, Prof, there was another question
yes.
on I think it was from Helen.
From Helen, yes.
The comment you made about Gen Z has nothing to lose. I think she has corrected you. Maybe you could that they were in the streets because they have nothing to lose. Do you think that's true?
Thank you, Helen. This is a kind of engagement that I hope this audience will also cherish. Indeed, what I wanted to mean was that at certain times in your life cycle, there are certain investments you make either materially or socially that you're afraid to lose. Say friendship. There are certain friendships that you're afraid to lose, and you might tolerate certain things that you may not always tolerate. If you have some material, if you have bought a small plot somewhere, and you are just starting to build, if that is disrupted, there's something to lose. And indeed, I agree with that because they are looking into the future. Right now, there's nothing that they are holding on to. There's nothing they're holding on to because they feel like everything is being taken from them. And that's why they have nothing to lose. That little that I have may be something that will keep me a little timid because there's something that will change my lifestyle. That's what I meant. But I really appreciate you saying that they are fighting for their future, which is true, because it is important to secure it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob, there's this, I think it is Chalo who raised it, Chalo, Pauline Chalo, faceless, tribeless, and partyless. Do you think that was a good idea? Do you think they need to review that, more action? What do you think?
I think this was a great mobilizing strategy because you know the easy categories that are shot down in this country. If you say that you have a leader, then as one of the students here was also mentioning, your leader is quickly compromised and bought off. So I think in framing their movement as fearless, tribeless, leaderless, then they adopted a strategy that enabled them to cut across all types of class and social cleavages, which tend to undermine the potency of any protest movement. And I think when you don't have a leader whose ethnicity, by just the virtue of their second name, can be fixed, then you're in a safer place to deal with a power structure that historically has always used ethnicity, religion, and I think we saw in this instance again, class to try and divide opposition or to try and divide protest that seeks to secure its rights and freedoms and a responsive government. So we saw efforts by the government trying to portray Gen Zs as being led by Uber, KFC eating. In other words, well-to-do spoiled kids who lack nothing but a little fun on the street. So I think this was a good strategy in mobilizing and in putting together that movement. But like all other movements, there'll be a lot of learning And I think as they go on, and appropriate organizational structure and leadership structures then can be explored.
Thank you. But Neema, I still bring that question to you. Much as you're saying you're leaderless, faceless, and partyless, is this a long-term strategy? Because at the end of the day, you can see what has happened. I really want to avoid discussing the political scenario in Kenya. But from where I sit and most Kenyans is that this has actually been used against Gen Zs. Because the generation was called to the table and they say they don't negotiate, there are no leaders, there are no parties, so blah, blah, blah. We all know what happened. Other people occupy the seats and that generation has been ignored, if you ask me. So do you think this is going to be a long-term strategy of being still partyless and leaderless? Or at some level, at some point, the generation will revise that strategy? What do you think?
I think at first it's like almost like a perfect strategy, Gen Z. At the same time, I think a level of order needs to be established, not necessarily establishing, holding each representative accountable, in that if we, the young people, sense that you're about to be bought by the government, we have a way of dealing with that. And
kusalimia ama kufanya
no. Putting them to the side and strategizing again, because we need, I think that level of neutrality has really helped us push for what is it called?
The Registrar of Political Parties. We, as per yesterday, we had and partyless. Someone has seen an opportunity. They have applied Gen Z parties of Kenya, I don't know what of Kenya, and they are waiting. And those are here they are Gen X and the other ones, and they are waiting. Anyway, let's do the last round. It's about 8 minutes to 9. We need to close the conversation, but we don't want to close anyone out. Kindly, one question. One question. Let me start from here now. And this second round, we only take questions which are burning. And I say there needs to be evidence in your talk that you're really burning. Microphone. Where's the microphone? We start from there. Okay. The gracious lady. There are two. Are those two hands? Yes, the two of you. Then the gentleman behind you. Your name, please.
My name is Mercy, and my question is, having observed what happened in Kenya and across other countries in Africa, like Uganda, and we saw it started also in Ghana a little bit. My question to the panelists today is, with this young generation and the new forms of engagement within the young generation and their sense of wokeness in political engagement, could it be bringing an... We've seen that it's moving also to other continents, like in South America, and also we've seen student protests in Indonesia.
Shell myth. Yeah. So for me, I'm really curious about these factors that are shaping generational that benefited from the free primary education from Kibaki. And after that, they're the generation who were really reading really crucial, interesting literature that are really engaging things like societal justice, as Professor Mwenda is saying, and they're literature that are actually triggering critical thinking among the young people. So books like Kifo Kisimani and Tumbo Lisilo Shiba, they are things that are talking about corruption and leadership. And also, I'm really happy that Shujaz is here, because it's part of the things that we were reading as young people. That's those newspaper pullouts. So at what extent do we want to kind of further this socialization through education and making young people even more aware about political and societal struggles. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wahome. Question has to do with just grounding the conversation from the abstract into something practical. Echoing also some of the sentiment from the film. The film was based in a university setting, and we have a university professor here. Grounding from the abstract, and also grounding it from, pushing back on Gen Zs and young people into kind of what the lady said in the film. Men should be talking to men. Adults, the older generations should be talking to older generations. I mean, this is their responsibility. This is the mess they've made after all. Specifically Mwenda, and this can be applied to a whole bunch of other people, but the fluence, or to relate to that kind of conversation that we saw on the film. And not just within USIU, but also within the circles of universities, both within Kenya. Yeah, with your power and responsibility, what are you doing to move this from just theory into practice?
Yes, habari zenu. I'm tempted to say people power. Yeah, my name is Clement Ambuka. I'm a Gen Z. I'm active about voicing what has been frustrating the Gen Zs in our societies. If you imagine frustration, then you should imagine growing up in a slum. I've grown up in a slum called Korogosho. And as I can quote the movie that we've watched, the system is rigged to frustrate, and most especially when you come from the slums. I learned in Korogosho Primary, went to Kisii University, and the system is rigged to frustrate us. When I had applied for help, I did not receive my help until my second year. The individual said that they were sleeping with other people. I was, what was the name that they were using? I was a squatter in someone's bed. Yes, I'm getting to the point. And Neema has said that the Gen Zs are complacent. I have a different opinion, because I think that Gen Zs have been voicing their opinions mainly on social media. They are known as the phone pressing generation. But the issues became too much for them. After so much frustration in everything, it was time for them to come out. So going back to what Shelmit, my question is kind of relating to what Shelmit has said. And what Mr. Jacob Aketch has been speaking throughout, that in those days, there were no revolutions. The people were not agitating for their rights. But I think even in those days, there were university students that were agitating for their rights. And I think maybe a question to the panelists, to Dr. Mwenda, do you think information contributes to people voicing what they would need to be done for them? Thank you. Because we are known to be a generation that is knowledgeable, a generation that is full of information, a generation that has interacted with so much. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elijah. And the question I have, a statement has been passed around that there is nothing new under the sun. And I've seen since we're in the age of information, I saw we are in the 6th information revolution. There have been others before this one. And I'm trying to imagine if there is nothing new under the sun, when there was writing, or when writing first came, or before writing, let's say the smoke, there was smoke in there, and then communities know it is time for war, and then they go. And then messengers came, and perhaps they became mediators for peace, and then writing and so on and so forth. So there has been this development of information. See, at the time when it comes, it is the new thing. Like we are saying, the internet and how we are communicating is the new thing right now. So the question I have specifically is, should we as a species expect any change if with the previous revolutions we have had, if with the previous new things that could have been used to champion for change, and they were used, but again, no change was effected. So even with this information revolution, in this age of ours, should we expect any change, or will it be in the future they will be saying they also had the internet, but then the problems are still persisting? Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Karume. I have 3 main things I wanted to say. We'll figure out how to frame them into a question. There was a conversation regarding the language that the Gen Z used to address the politicians, basically, right? And I know Neema said that the thought process was, the intention was not to offend, but I'd like to say that we were actually looking to offend them, because we are tired of respectability politics, because respectability politics has not brought us anything. And it, in fact, what it does is, if you look at it from a perspective of encouraging abuse from an African setting, right? When abuse happens, you're told, especially in a family setting, you're told you can't go and announce that outside because, you know, umekosea mzazi heshima, umekosea your uncle heshima and whatnot. And time again, we have tried to have conversations about what we want on social media by putting out statements and saying that the politicians are not doing what they need to do. So things like kuwasalimia, kuanguka nayo, yes, I'm getting that. We are not doing respectability politics. We're done with that. Number 2, in regards to, I think the point has escaped, but basically what I wanted to say is, let me just finish, that it's important, it's, yes. Even as we talk about not offending, it's important to acknowledge that the agenda behind it was that we're not looking to bembeleza. And secondly, I've just remembered, another thing, the reason why Gen Z were very quick to say that they're not coming to the table to dialogue is because when you get a job, you have a job description. You know what you're supposed to deliver. So why are we, who are considered as children, coming to tell you this is what you need to do as a leader? Does not make sense. Thank you.
Wow. Good evening. Yeah, my name is Odor. I'm a political scientist, I'm public policy analyst. Yeah, my question is capped into 3, but is 1 on broken systems. Prof, we are having broken systems in this country. For instance, in the education, they are having loans here and there, some capping up to billions. And recently there have been strikes going from primary education to secondary, and soon on same on broken systems, Dr. Coco Aketch. Last week I was in a certain engagement, and you find parents' assistants where soon we are going back into your days we used to lose even leaders going to JM.
Not all our mother country, Kenya, the region, East Africa, continent Africa, but all the world. And I'm showing a lot of concern what's going on. And according to my is laid on third world countries that gained independence from former colonies. After we as becoming independent, things went out of way. Our brother Jacob said, the universities look very different compared to the Western universities of Europe. Yes, it is happening. So if I want to get rid of dean or professor in a university, I'll play all of sort of dirty games to diminish the person's name. So I take the position. That's what I've sensed. My question is, it was a worry, as you said, we were Gen X, yeah, Gen Z. Coming generations will be there. Is it, as I can see, the countries, even our country, Kenya, is getting smaller by day. And what I've sensed and seen is the population explosion. And this weight lays solely, wholly, and entirely on three institutions who are leading us at the population. Thanks. My question is, how shall we overcome the problem? Because Gen Z of today, after 30 years, they will be old enough to have another generation to bring them. It was easier for previous governments, like during Kibaki time, the roads were expanded. During Uhuru time, the railways were expanded, people are getting job. As at the moment, housing has been expanded, people are getting the job. What about the coming people who are going to live entirely? Shelter, food, and clothing. These are the vital issues. How shall we overcome this situation? Thanks.
We've run out of time, so we'll try to give the panelists just one chance to respond to all. I'll start with you knew your questions. Just respond to them in one way, kindly.
Okay, they were complacent, but to some degree, because from my observation, some have been disinterested, but also a good number have always been passionate, and this had been their time to speak either perspective. I guess we see through different lenses also, and that's when I mentioned that we got tired of the older generation's complacency, which is also affecting us. But I should say that Shujaz, we don't try it for mainstream. In fact, we don't take any political sides. Shujaz is for the young people, and by the young people, positive behavioral social change. And we tell story of the everyday heroes. Those are the people whose stories you would otherwise not hear about. Yes.
Kilam, and said, yes, there are times they've been able to learn certain things that are politically charged. In my time, the drama teacher was very careful, say, to talk about Azania shall be free, and stage this play as if it is about the oppressive regime of apartheid in South Africa. But everything about it would be about police brutality and harassment in Kenya. If you went to the University of Nairobi in that time, most of your lecturers encouraged you to do something called close reading of text. In other words, do not impose any other meaning and understanding into this text other than what is written here, and count the metaphors and count the similes that have been used in this as a way of analyzing this text. In other words, depoliticize learning completely. So yes, something happened, and now we can talk about politics and relate it to the text we teach in classrooms. And for Oduor, who was asking the question about breakdown, when you see people on the streets, protests on the streets, it's not because the protesters are causing it. It's usually the case that the system is broken internally elsewhere and is paralyzed elsewhere and is not delivering. Gen Z didn't just happen, but before they happened, passports were hard to get, ID cards were hard to get, school calendar was a big mess, The school curriculum is still a big mess. So the breakdown was already there. This is just a response to it. And they're right in saying, you know what to do, you don't need to ask us to tell you what to do.
Thank you. Maybe just one more before Prof finishes. There was this question on population explosion. Do you think it's a time bomb that we need to focus on?
Yes, I think as early as 2000, it was clear that if you looked at the demographic structure of Kenya, the pyramid shape was getting heavier at the lower ages. And that those who are 40 and above were getting like 5% of the population and all. And sooner or later, we would get to a position where 70% of Kenyans are below the age of, say, 30. And without making commensurate investment in education, in production in agriculture, we were not going to provide and make good use of this youth bulge. I think many people made this case as early as 2000, but our government has not been responsive enough to this kind of pressure. But it is there. It may have taken a lull, but you never know when it will break out again.
Yes. Can you summarize the way our professor does?
No pressure. No pressure. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, so what are you doing at the university? Grounding the conversation is to teach our students to focus more on asking questions than looking for answers. The most valuable part of this film was the kind of critical engagement they had with each other, where they were asking each other questions and challenging their ideas. That is what we are trying to do at the university. And I think it's a great way to prepare young people to see through certain ways of thinking. Information is important. Without information, if I came to your small corner and said, did you know that the bursary that I gave you, I signed out 3 times of what I gave you? What will that information do for you? Information is very powerful. We need to search for it and use it. Should we expect change if nothing is new under the sun? Yes. By saying nothing is new, we are saying the tools of engagement change, but the push for societal advancement has always been a human endeavor. The tools may change, but we all want a better life. For any of our generations, you will see that. That's how we were able to change the cruelty that my brother here is talking about, where we couldn't say anything in the public, to a place where you know you can actually say something in public. Broken systems, I think, Odor, you answered your own question. Because it's values, practices, and expectations. And you said there are those who write because they are being paid. Is the system broken? We help it to be broken. What is our values? What is it that we do when no one is watching that advances the well-being of all the people? Let me finish with this. Why are they faceless, tribeless, leaderless? They are saying, we know these are the categories you've used before. We want to disrupt those categories and call you to the table to say, are you able to do something differently, or are you going to do the same old stuff? I think that is, for me, the learning that we've had. I can tell you, I know your tricks. Now, tell me what else you have in your hand. Thank you.
Let's appreciate our panel this evening. You've been a fantastic audience. My name is Jason. It's always a pleasure. And see you next time. And the beauty is that that evening ends with a glass of wine. So let me...
Exactly. Thank you,
you.
Jez, and thank you, the panelists. It was great. Thank you, Ifra. Very nice collaboration with you. We have wine served in the garden now and cocktail. And last thing, I have seen a baby in this room. She was representing the Gen A. Asante sana.